So, I heard you're looking for a go-to source for entertainment.
Wait for it.
Gaming?
Wait for it.
Anime?
Plus Ultra!
Mr. Eric Almighty and Phil the Filipino? Yeah, they've got you covered. And all you gotta do is... wait for it. This is the Wait For It podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Wait For It podcast. I am your co-host, Phil Smith, aka Phil the Filipino. And joining me as always is your other co-host, Mr. Eric Almighty. And Eric, we are here with the October edition of Late to the Party. And in true October and Spooktober fashion, we are taking on a Jordan Peele film, and we're taking on his most recent film, which is Nope. Came out in 2022 to a lot of, I think, mixed reception. And I don't know that's necessarily the fault of this specific film because of what, and we'll talk about that here in just a moment. But, when you're coming off absolute bangers with, of course, Get Out and then Us, which I have not seen Us, but I have seen Get Out, and that'll again play into our discussion here tonight. Released to some mixed fanfare. So I'm excited to see how both of us reacted to it and talk about this film. And, at the end of the day, taking in anything coming from the mind of Jordan Peele is usually a pretty good call.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, I'm going to kind of skip ahead to this, Phil. I was looking at some of the Rotten Tomatoes, and one of the comments here is, or I guess what is a summary, is it may not be the movie you think you're going to get or even the movie you want, but either way, Nope leaves a strong impression as a true Jordan Peele original. And that really stuck with me because that's definitely a good way to describe this film. I'm not surprised there was a split reaction. And, a year later, getting to watch it, I'm definitely excited to talk about it and to jump in. It fits the theme of October we were going for. It's a movie that was on both of our radars. I know we've been talking about watching this since it was in theaters, so it was really about time, but we are late to the party.
Yes, as the title of this series entails. So excited to get into it here. Before we begin, want to welcome in any brand new listeners that are checking out the show for the first time. Welcome. Thank you guys so much for giving us a shot and giving us your time as well. If you want to know where the rest of our content is, as well as our social media pages, go ahead and wait until the end of the episode. I'll let you know where all of that is. And for all of you returning listeners, welcome back. Thank you guys so much again for the continued support, especially our patrons, Stefan and Breyer. But for those of you that are either brand new or if you need a little bit of a refresher, Eric, let them know what Late to the Party is all about, and then we will dive right into it.
Yeah, so Late to the Party was inspired by our desire to catch up on some of the biggest films and other media in pop culture that we've missed over the years. So for this episode, we are going to talk about the very divisive Nope, which is a Jordan Peele film, I believe his third, if I'm correct, Phil. And I also have not seen Us for context. I've only seen Get Out and now Nope. So it's not really, I guess, a trilogy, but in the sense of this filmography, it kind of is. So we're missing that one little element. Still excited to talk about it. And who knows, maybe we'll revisit Us in the future. But I'm ready to go if you are, Phil. What did you like about this film?
Well, always going to be a fan of Daniel Kaluuya, whatever work that he is in, starting with Get Out and then his minor role in Black Panther, another solid character that he's done. So always really like that. Keke Palmer is a star. Even though I hadn't seen this film, I did very much grow an admiration for her during the press tour. She just has a really, really outspoken and likable personality. So I was excited to see her in this, even though I didn't take the dive into Nope in theaters. And usually I don't when it comes to horror films. I'm much more better with those in the comfort of my own home, as I am pretty jumpy. I have to, one of my favorite thing going into some of these series that we watch, there is a website called Where's the Jump, and it lets you know where the jump scares are. So if you're very jumpy like me, check out that website. You are welcome if you already did not know about it. But yeah, and then I also just really am a fan of Jordan Peele's storytelling. Now, was this necessarily something that I'm going to recommend to everybody? We'll get to that in just a moment. But again, I just think that Jordan Peele is kind of like a generational storyteller and director when it comes to, our generation. And I think when it comes down to it, like, his films are going to be films that are studied when it comes to building tension and horror and kind of just building a world. I think he's going to be somebody whose work will stick around for a very, very long time. So any opportunity you get, again, to take in Jordan Peele properties, I think, again, you're just doing yourself a favor, even if Nope wasn't necessarily my biggest cup of tea.
Yeah, I mean, that's completely understandable. I'm right there with you. Keke Palmer specifically was an absolute standout. She was infectious. I also, for a lot of the movie, liked the slow burn. I'm not always a slow burn kind of guy, but I know in like horror in a sense, and I know this isn't necessarily a horror film, but for films like this, you're building the suspense, you're building up to the end game. It's going to require a slow burn. And at no point, Phil, and I don't know that you felt this way, but at no point did I really feel bored. I was always interested to see what was going to happen next. I will also say there's a lot of great imagery here. One of the things that Jordan Peele, kind of doing my research on it, everyone relates this movie to like a Steven Spielberg-esque type film. In fact, the word spectacle is used a lot when discussing the themes and just the film overall. And even Jordan Peele said this is like his summer blockbuster out of the ones that he's made. So this felt like that. And I think for that, it worked. It really did work as a whole. There is one particular thing I really liked that I'm curious how you felt, but I do want to, and I maybe missed it at the beginning. Late to the party. We're late to the party, so we're going to speak freely about this movie. There is one big plot point, and really the twist of the film, that I'm going to bring up here pretty early on. So if you don't want to hear it, this is probably your pause point. I loved that this seemingly alien, like UFO movie, that the actual spacecraft wasn't a spacecraft. It was an actual creature. And I loved that element a lot. I was curious how you felt about that twist, because it is, I think, great.
I think that's something that I also kind of came across as far as like taking in some reviews, is that some people were kind of thrown off or not happy with the fact that it wasn't your typical sci-fi alien film. And I try to think of like, what are really the Hallmark alien films for like our generation? Like Men in Black is pretty campy and comedy. Like Arrival. Have you seen Arrival? I was not the biggest fan of Arrival. People love that movie, but I found it kind of boring. Have you ever seen Arrival?
I've never seen it, but I know people like it a lot. So you're gonna make
people love
upset.
it. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, Amy Adams is great in it, but we talk about a slow burn. Arrival is a slow burn. We're watching aliens do cursive. Sorry for the spoiler there, Eric. I apologize, but if you ever watch it, let me know what you think. There's Arrival, Mars Attacks. Like when we're thinking of, I think, like alien movies, I mean, a lot of people are thinking about those types of films, and that's not what Nope is going to be. Like you said, a very much so a slow burn, but I thought it was cool as well. When the first time you see it, you're like, oh, okay, typical spherical alien UFO type of sighting. And then the final form of it, pretty cool. I also like, when you think about the mind of Jordan Peele and you see like the beginning credits are like, the little tunnel, you're like, this is something that this is going to come into play. This is definitely not just like a random opening to the film. So I thought that was pretty neat. But yeah, really, I think that was a cool decision. Again, Jordan Peele never does things traditionally. And I like that. I thought it was a pretty cool design overall.
Yeah, that's an interesting take, because I did like the twist on the alien. Did not love that final form. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand how he got there. It just kind of started happening, and I didn't quite understand how it worked.
Jellyfish.
Is that what it was?
I don't know. That's what I was thinking of.
Oh, okay. That's cool then, I guess. But no, I like when it's still shaped as a UFO, I kind of understand, how it works, and I get it. Like, okay, they suck it up. It's like the mouth. When it turns into, and it does it randomly. Like, there's no indication that this thing can do this. I don't know. I don't want to say it took me out, but it definitely was weird. It was weird, and I don't think there was a lot, around that. But Phil, kind of transitioning into stuff we probably maybe didn't like about the film, because again, this is a very beautiful film to look at. The filmography and the cinematography, I think, is really, really well done for the most part. There's one part I know you hated, and that's Gordy. If you do not know, Phil has I would say a rational fear of monkeys, but I think he would disagree. Phil, how is that? Because I didn't want to tell you that the movie started.
I don't understand
that way.
Do we even know? And listen, all of Jordan Peele's films are incredibly layered. A lot of them, of course, are about social commentary. This one felt like he just wanted to throw a terrifying monkey in it. I don't know what purpose that it served. Maybe to build up Steven Yeun's backstory, his character, his trauma, whatever that was, only for him to just get sucked up by the vacuum later on in the movie. Not sure if that was ever addressed again, but it's like everything that I've ever said about these things was justified in these scenes. And honestly, that was the most terrifying part of the film. I know there's the one jump scare later on in the movie, but that whole flashback scene is terrifying. And it's exactly why I don't like that we make them so smart. I don't like that we're teaching them to do all these different things. Between AI and monkeys, man, we're screwed. If there's like an AI monkey robot or something like that, we're done for it, dude. I'm not even going to try to put up a fight. I'm just going to give up. So it was an awful, terrible scene, and I'm still not sure what the point of it is. Now, again, I'll probably go back and watch like a YouTube video on Nope, and then it'll give me all the subtle nuances on why that scene was important and why we had to know about it and all that stuff. But, in the moment and in the now, having watched it earlier today, hated it. Don't really understand why the monkey was in the movie at all.
Yeah, so I watched it before you, so I had some time to kind of go down the rabbit hole. And the short story, and I kind of felt this, because I was also wondering why did we have this monkey? Why did we do that for a character? You would think the character that Steven Yeun plays just to basically die, right? But it kind of, and I could kind of see this, I can kind of understand it now. They did it to kind of parallel the actual creature as far as like hitting its breaking point and the way that it's being treated and things along those lines. I feel like you need a little bit more time in that setting with Gordy and the cast to make it stick, right? So I feel like there wasn't a lot of time to really make that point clear to audiences. And I think that's why we're going to see a lot of people, when we go over the scores, this isn't a universally beloved movie. A lot of people left the film confused, disappointed, and others absolutely loved it. So by all means, it definitely hit a particular type of audience. I think for you and me, it was missing layers, or we missed those layers while watching it. I will say, this movie does feel like if you were to give it another go, you'd probably catch a lot more. If you really kind of slow it down and you take the time to do it. Am I going to do that? Probably not. Should I have to do that? And I think that's a big thing for you and me, Phil. Should we have to watch a second movie to get it? Probably not. But there was enough of those layers that worked for me, at least. I just think with Gordy, there could have been a little bit more emphasis or a little bit more time for that specific, section.
Or just not put him in the movie. You can do something else.
Honestly, I would be here for a Gordy horror movie if we want to put that on display. Let's start the petition.
God. We just saw it. That 5-minute scene was the horror movie. That's all you needed. It was absolutely
think about
awful.
Another 55 minutes.
No, and then the lady was at because she survived, and you could see her. Oh God, it's awful. I hate it.
It did feel so like the much. Gordy. It did feel like the Gordy scenes were there to set up unsettling imagery. So in that sense, again, that's why it didn't quite work for me in the confines of the film, which at its core is this family on a ranch trying to get a picture of an alien. Like that's at its core what the story is about. Obviously, there's a lot of underlying themes around that very simplistic, plot that I just gave. But where Gordy fit in all that, I didn't really think it worked that particularly well. Phil, was there anything else about this film that kind of stood out on a positive or a negative standpoint? As you just saw this today and it's fresh on your mind.
Yeah, and again, the only other Jordan Peele film that I have to reference is Get Out. Now, I have seen the kill count of Us, so I know, what happens. And for all intents and purposes, it looks like a pretty action-packed film, even for, Jordan Peele. With Get Out, I think obviously with a lot of it had to do with the social commentary, but just being gripped by that mystery from beginning to end while also being really, really scared. Again, watched it in the comfort of my own home, so it was a little bit more, it was easier to digest, is what I will say. And I just wasn't feeling that here with Nope, like you said, definitely a slow burn to the points where I was a little bored at points. And, it does hurt me to say that because, we've obviously spoken our praises about Jordan Peele and his filmmaking. But yeah, this one certainly missed the mark for me. Like you said, I'm not going to go back and watch this. It would be difficult for me to really recommend this to a lot of people, and not to say that it's a bad movie by any means, because as we've stated here, there are certainly things that we've liked, but having only Get Out and 30 minutes of what I've seen from Us, this didn't feel like that. Get Out, I think, is honestly I haven't watched many, but Get Out is one of the best horror films that I have ever seen. And this, while being horror adjacent, like I said, it's more sci-fi, more in that realm. But as far as story and character wise, I wasn't gripped like I was in Get Out. And maybe that's unfair, but when you come out of the gate swinging like he did, then, people expect home runs. And that's not what Nope was for me.
No, completely understandable. And, Phil, I think this is a great opportunity for us to kind of look at the reception of the film and talk a little bit about that with some of the scoring, because again, we could talk all day. I'm curious where we're going to land with our Letterboxd scores, so we'll save that here, towards the end after we talk about how everyone else has kind of received it. But I am very curious when we get to that part where we're going to rank it. I feel like you like it less than I do, and I think I might like it a little bit more than you think. So I'm curious where those numbers are going to lie. But how did audiences kind of take this? I got to see a little preview, and I'm going to be honest, I kind of wasn't surprised when I finished the film and then seeing this.
Yeah, not surprising whatsoever. 83% certified fresh on the tomato meter score. It's funny, what I think? Rotten Tomatoes is like the PFF of movies. Like, some people hold a lot of stock and some people think it's absolutely bogus. For those of you sports fans, football fans specifically, 83% certified fresh tomato meter score, 69% audience score. Nice. So 14% difference between audience and the critics. And like you said, Eric, people coming out of the movie probably a little confused, but then also those people coming out absolutely loving it. And that score really shows that.
Yeah, and you guys may recall at the beginning of the episode, I talked about, kind of that saying that that kind of described one of the viewpoints of this movie, where, it doesn't matter what, you don't know what movie you're going to get. And that was what the audience says. And that's according to Rotten Tomatoes. The critics' consensus says, admirable for its originality and ambition, even when its reach exceeds its grasp. Nope adds Spielbergian spectacle to Jordan Peele's growing arsenal. And that's what this felt like. This felt like, kind of checking off a box. Some of the inspirations for this film, people have brought up things like Jaws, obviously Jurassic Park. People have even brought up things like King Kong and The Wizard of Oz as inspiration. So I feel like there are a lot of things that were kind of brought in. This was probably a passion project, and honestly, I think probably checked a box off the bucket list for the type of movie Jordan Peele wanted to make. That movie's not going to be for everyone. I can at least respect, though, his vision to kind of summarize that point. I can respect his attempt here, and I think that does mean something, especially when it comes to recommending this movie. It's not for everyone, but I do think it's worth a watch. So, Phil, that's going to bring us to where you landed on the film out of 5 on Letterboxd. What happened here?
Yeah, well, for reference, unfair or not, I have Get Out as a 4.5 on Letterboxd. So that is what I gave Get Out. So obviously very lofty expectations. When we look at our Letterboxd scores and having to adjust for not doing an out of 10 and doing an out of 5, like you said, I think it was the very last episode that we watched, or the international feature that we watched, where you said a 2.5 would be difficult for you to recommend, and that's where I landed, is a 2.5. Because again, I don't know that I can recommend this to everybody. I think people that have seen all of Jordan Peele's films, yes, absolutely watch this one just to continue to support the director and also continuing to see how his vision is evolving over time. And I don't think this is by any means a sign of things that to come, that things are maybe on the decline. That's definitely not what's happening here. It just wasn't the type of film that I was looking for when it comes to, the sci-fi and the horror genre. So I landed on a 2.5. Again, not terrible, but it's not something that I would watch again.
Yeah. Again, I had a feeling you liked it a little less than I thought you would coming into this, and I think I liked it a little bit more than you're gonna think. I actually landed on a 3.5. If I had to, if you put a gun to my head and I could change Letterboxd, 0.25s would exist, and this would probably be a 3.25 for context. But I think it's a little bit better than a 3, and a 3.5 for me. Like, I do think it's better than good. Although it does kind of lose me in the third act. There are things that happen that are just, again, this creature completely turns and changes the whole dynamic of how it moves, how it works in a sense. Little things that kind of annoyed me. Like, up until that part, I was honestly leaning towards maybe a 4 potentially. Like, I was really enjoying the journey. But that third act really lost me. Things like the cameraman, the director that they get a pretty good shot, and he just decides, I want a better one, and I'm just gonna die. Is stuff like that really kind of took me out and really kind of lowered my score overall. But I think that this movie is one that you could tell people if they're looking for something a little fresh and that has a unique spin or a unique take on it. I think there is an audience for this film, and I feel like you're not going to know until you watch it. That's why I wanted to make it really clear. One of the first things I brought up was like the fact that the spacecraft is actually a creature. Like, that's a huge twist that I think made the movie way more interesting, because from like a animal tamer perspective that they were going for, there was a lot of cool stuff about that. So again, 3.5, probably a little too high, but we're subject to Letterboxd scores. That's where I landed. And are you surprised?
No, because I think if the 0.25s were a thing, I think a 3.25 for you is definitely would be on par, because you especially going through this episode, you definitely spoke about it a lot more glowingly than I did for the most part. But it grossed 172.3 million on a $68 million budget. So as far as this genre, I believe that's pretty solid. When you look at horror and sci-fi in general, and just as far as the goodwill that that Jordan Peele has built up, deservingly so, over over his film run. So not too surprising, but again, like I said, just was not for me. But I'm excited to see whatever he has cooking next.
Yeah, and I'm doing the lazy thing, which is just trying to find the answer on Wikipedia. So sorry, but I guess it kind of like did a little bit under what was expected, and then obviously a little bit less than what Us did previous to that. So I would assume the same thing for Get Out, more than likely. But again, I think a lot of people like this film. A lot
Holy
of people
shit.
have spoken. What?
Get Out had a budget of 4.5 million. It made 255.4.
Yeah, okay, that's
Us
a difference.
had a $20 million budget, 256.1. So yeah, it was a pretty significant difference from Get Out and Us. Again, two totally different tones and films. Get Out and Us are pretty dark in terms of just the cinematography. Nope is out in Montana somewhere, wherever it was. California, actually. It was in California. Out in the middle of nowhere. So I always forget that California also looks like that in some spaces. It's not just like Los Angeles and the beach.
And now that you kind of said, I don't know why it just came into my mind. Really what I wanted to say to summarize my score, which I'm pissed I didn't say it just right when I did. It would have been pretty clip worthy. This movie, if you just want to say nope, and that's all I told you, this movie would be the movie to recommend. Like, there were a lot of nopes. There were a lot of nopes. It did do what it sold you on. And I just say that because I just thought of the trailer. We were talking about this movie somewhat being a disappointment. Like, leading up to the movie, there was a lot of hype around it. And I know when we saw that first trailer, we were extremely interested. So, again, if you want to see a movie that makes you say nope, well, Nope is the movie for you.
There you go. It that sums it up perfectly, because there's plenty of Nope moments in Nope. So we'll.
And are we gonna see it again?
Nope.
Okay. Also that part.
But there you have it, guys. Our late to the party episode of Nope. What did you think of the movie? Did you enjoy it? Did it exceed your expectations? Was it disappointing? Let us know on any of our social media pages. There's a couple of ways you can actually interact with us directly. 2 ways are our Instagram and TikTok page, which we are very active. And we have a brand new Discord page that has been a lot of fun. People posting there all the time, pop culture news, what they're watching or streaming, other episodes from other podcasts from our friends. So it's a great way to interact with us. So it's been a lot of fun in there. All of that can be found in the Linktree link of this very episode. You can also support the show a little bit more if you want to head on over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify, if that's where you're listening. Leave us a 5-star review. Tell us what we're doing right. And it's one of the best ways you can support the show. It drives us up those charts and lets those podcast networks know that we are doing a good job over here. And if you want to find yourself, maybe supporting the podcast a little bit more, Eric will let you know how to do that.
Yeah, guys, so you can go directly to our Buzzsprout page, which is also in the link tree, and you can become a supporter of the show directly and subscribe to us there. Or you could take those funds and move it over in the form of Patreon, where we're very active with multiple tiers that you could take advantage of, including unedited versions and early access to episodes like this one, along with a lot more benefits. Thanks again to Stefan and Breyer for supporting the show. We really appreciate everything, guys. It's going to be an exciting month, and we can't wait to do a lot more for the month of October. And with all that being said, my name is Mr. Eric Almighty. That is my co-host, Phil the Filipino. And please don't forget, we release new episodes every Wednesday on the podcast with bonus content on platforms like TikTok. And all you got to do is wait for it.
So, I heard you're looking for a go-to source for entertainment.
Wait for it.
Gaming?
Wait for it.
Anime?
Plus Ultra!
Mr. Eric Almighty and Phil the Filipino? Yeah, they've got you covered. And all you gotta do is wait for it. This is the Wait For It podcast.